Hi there. For the last episode of this series on the geography of the tea mountains in southern Yunnan, we're gonna explore Lincang. So Lincang, you can see in the bottom left corner, is in the northeast of the production area of the Pu'er tea production area of Yunnan. Okay, so in the south you have Xishuangbanna at the southernmost tip. In the middle you have Pu'er, and in the northwest you have Lincang. And these three regions, it's basically maybe 70% of the tea production in Yunnan. And I would say, 95% of the pu'er tea is produced in those three regions. So let's go south. Let's say we're coming from Pu'er. So you have Pu'er that's at the bottom there. Here you have a road. The road comes from Lansang. It's near Jingmai. So if you want to go there, you can from Pu'er you can either go to Lansang and go north, or you can take that road that goes from Jinggu, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe you can also come from Wuliangshan. But anyway, let's go south to north in Lincang. So when you arrive in Lincang, you will have a spot that is called Taheishan. It's not so famous, and I'm not too knowledgeable about the taste in that area. I would suppose it tastes a little bit like Bangwai. Bangwai is just at the border in the south. It's in Pu'er County, but it's at the border with Lincang. So one of the first place you could visit, which is quite remote, is Gangma. Gangma is a little town, and as they say, there's one Tachingsan, but I think there is more to it in Gangma than what is written on this map. It's a place that can be explored, and you can find pretty good tea there, I've heard. It's again on my to-do list, going to Gangma. It's fairly remote. If we stick to the main road that goes to Lincang, so Lincang is the capital city of the province. So we will go through Taheishan, and then we will arrive in Shuangjiang. In Shuangjiang, you have a lot of tea factories. It's a very pleasant town, middle-sized city, and you have that Mengku tea factory, which is one of the largest in Yunnan, and lots of tea factories. So it's a bit of a Monghai of the north, you could say. Now, if you go, you drive for less than an hour, you will arrive to Mengku. Mengku is a smaller city, so you have less big factories there, but it's a great starting point to go to all the mountains in Mengku area. So it's, in my opinion, my favorite terroir in Lincang. Of course, that's the home of Bingdao Laozhai, which is, I would say, the most expensive tea in the Pu'er world, or if not the most expensive tea in the world, actually. So you can see that the tea mountains form a triangle, and you can see that very clearly on Google Earth. You have two mountains, so you have the western mountain, what we call Shibanshan, and we have the eastern mountain, Dongbanshan, and they all point towards Bingdao Laozhai, which is at high altitude at the intersection of the two mountains. So there's not a lot of tea in Bingdao Laozhai, and this is why it is so expensive. But in the surroundings, you have a fairly decent amount of tea. Among the famous villages you'll find there will be Nanpo, Dijie, Nuowu, Dongguo. These are pretty famous villages that we nowadays consider Bingdao tea. I would say Bingdao tea. Bingdao is a little bit like Banzhong has become. You could say that there is a fairly wide extended area. But unlike Lao Banzhong, Bingdao Laozhai has very, very few tea gardens. But honestly, it is not my favorite tea. That area is not my favorite tea in Mengku. My favorite tea would be Xiaohusai. Xiaohusai has the largest amount of tea gardens, of ancient tea gardens, and they can be really big so it's the largest amount of tea in Mengku. It's they have a lot of ancient tea gardens, a little bit like Jingmai, not as much, but still quite a lot. And I love the taste. And honestly, the taste reminds me of Yiwu tea. So maybe I am a bit crazy, but that's how I feel when I taste the tea. It tastes a lot like Yiwu to me, like very good mouthfeel, very thick, very restrained fragrance, complex but restrained. Not fancy, like in a basic Jingmai tea. Bordering it, you also have Ta Husai, which in my opinion is not as good as Xiao Husai. Then on the east, like you have Najiao, you could also add like Bingshan, which are famous areas. But basically you have tea on the two sides. Well, if you make a triangle like this, you have tea quite everywhere. And at different altitudes, you have a huge mountain that peaks as 3,200 meters, and this is Tashueshan, so the big snowy mountain. So we call it Mengku Tashueshan because there are quite a few Tashueshan, quite a few big snowy mountains in Yunnan. So, for example, you will have another mountain in that area, another Tashueshan in that area. But let's not talk about that area yet. We're gonna stay on the road and just go to Lincang. Lincang, I only went there twice. It's quite an unremarkable town, but still pretty pleasant, a little bit like Pu'er. And if you go east of Lincang, you will have the Bangdong area. This is Bangdong area. There's quite a lot of tea, and you will have the second most famous place in Lincang, which is Xigui. So Xigui, I think, is famous for its high fragrance. It would be quite the opposite of Xiao Husai, in my opinion. It is a very fancy tea. In my opinion, Bangdong area, it's more about light mouthfeel, high fragrance, and kind of that explosive mouthfeel. You see. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the area, but I recognize that this area is still quite popular, quite in demand in Yunnan. Now, if you go northeast in those places, honestly, I've never heard about these places. This is also probably included in that Lincang area. I don't know about those two places. So let's continue north. If you go back south, like through that road, you will arrive that large county is Yongde County. And in Yongde County, you have quite a lot of tea, even though the villages are remote and the terroirs are not so famous. I would say the most famous mountain in Yongde would be Mengfei. Mengfei has gained quite a lot of popularity in the last decade, and it's a well-deserved popularity in my opinion because it's pretty good tea. But actually Yongde has a lot of pretty good tea, and it is much cheaper than the other mountains. You could say, yeah, that might be actually the cheapest area for Gushu, along with Zhenyuan. Jinggu not so much anymore, maybe Wuliangshan. You would find a lot of decent pu'er tea there. But again, you have to dig, you have to dig in. And I'm not sure they all make pu'er tea, maybe some also make black tea. It's again an area I have to visit. I've never been. Then if you so here, interestingly, you're still in Yongde. It seems to be quite a large county, and that's where the second big snowy mountain is, Tashueshan, also famous for its wild tea trees. Actually, I didn't mention, but in Mengku Tashueshan, you also have a park where they have wild tea trees, and again, just like in the case of other places with wild tea trees, what they do is they take cuttings and plant regular plantations so that we can get the wild taste while not spoiling the wild tea trees and the nature there. So generally, I don't sell wild tea because yes, I'm a little bit worried about the effects on the environment that this can have, because we're not, when it's wild tea that's taken from the forest, like real wild tea, well, you can expect the environment to be spoiled just due to the harvesting. Now, when it's planted like regular plantations, it would be okay. But anyway, I don't really like the taste of wild tea trees. Although these tastes can be very, there's a great diversity of tastes actually in wild tea trees. You have very bitter ones, very sweet ones. Many of them don't have any particular taste or a slightly smoky taste. But anyway, that would be maybe for another video. So we have Yongde here, we have Mengku, we have Bangdong area there. And if you keep going north, so this area, yeah, again, I don't know, there's Wanmingshan, Tazhongshan. I've never heard of these places. I don't even know where it's located really. Is it in Yongde or somewhere else? We'll need to find out about this. But if we keep going north, I would like to attract your attention on the northernmost growing area in Lincang, which is Fengqing. And Fengqing is famous for what? It is famous for black tea, of course. The most famous Yunnan black teas come from Fengqing. Why? Because you have a high altitude and you have the know-how there. You have maybe some specific varietals that will give better tea, and generally speaking, they use more traditional methods, or at least that's what they want us to believe, right? We should go there to confirm this, but they tend to have more specific processing standards for black tea. So I'd love actually to be able to offer these black teas from Fengqing. But again, I know some people there. I've gotten some samples, and yet I found out that the black teas that we make in Jingmai, or that other producers make in the famous mountains, are might please more a poor tea drinker actually. Fengqing tea, it's a bit more for the non-poor tea drinker, honestly. It's more if you want that kind of lighter, more casual tea. But it's very good. It's also very good. It's just that you cannot really make poor tea with that, well, probably with the cultivars they have, and I don't know, the terroir, again, the soil. The only place that is famous for poor tea in Fengqing would be Xiangjiang. And Xiangjiang is very famous because that's where you have that huge tea tree that's supposedly 3,200 years old. So, so that's Xiangjiang. Oh, you also have Baiyingshan, I think, which is also famous. But again, the problem is, we're a little bit like hillbillies in Pu'er. We're quite remote in the south of Yunnan. And what is famous in Pu'er might not be in Kunming, actually. So that's very interesting, because, the reputation of the area, it's really a matter of marketing. And even what's popular in Guangdong might not be popular in Beijing. Like, for example, in 2016, we went to Beijing and had a lot of tea in the big tea market, and honestly, maybe half of the people didn't even know about Jingmai, and when they barely knew the difference between ripe and raw pu'er, that was already something good, So you have lots of specific terroirs, but you could say it's also a somewhat subjective stuff, like what's trendy and what is good tea. I'm sure different areas will have different opinions about it. Like, for example, if you're in Mengku, I'm sure they will tell you that this map is incomplete because there are so many villages which have some reputation in Mengku area that you won't even have enough space to put them on the map. But okay, so to summarize, yeah, you have Yongde, Mengku, Bangdong, well, Lincang area, and Fengqing. That would be the major tea areas in Lincang, and I would say the highest quality and the highest diversity, in my opinion, would be Mengku. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.